Round 1 had begun, and when my opponent flipped over Tatsugiri EX, I knew I was in trouble. You see, Tatsugiri has the second attack called Cinnabar Lure, which allows its user to look at the top 10 cards of the deck and put any number of Pokemon onto their bench, including Pokemon that usually have to evolve. That meant my opponent could set up a terrifying board state very quickly. Another issue was that I had no clue what Pokemon were in his deck, and after a slow first turn for both of us, I managed to get a bit lucky and flower select myself into multiple switch cards, which allowed me to begin applying pressure with Cramorant.
Nice. Switch. That should not have worked that well. That's an insane turn from us.
However, this is when it all went wrong. My opponent was able to set up their attack using a card called Crispin, which allowed him to accelerate energy to Tatsugiri, enabling him to use Cinnabar Lure, and that's when this happened.
What the fuck?
Yep, he had set up a full bench in a single attack, getting out not only Dusknoir, which we already know is a nightmare for Lost Box decks like mine, but also Hydreigon, a card I hadn't yet tested against. Hydreigon's second attack, Obsidian, was devastating, 130 damage to my active Pokemon and 130 to 2 more of my bench Pokemon. Against a deck like mine, filled with low HP Pokemon, that kind of spread damage could be game-ending, and worst part, my opponent had a clear way to make it happen. You see, the key to surviving Hydreigon's spread damage was Manaphy, my bench barrier, but my opponent knew that too. Dusknoir, with its ability to place damage counters strategically, became the perfect tool to remove my Manaphy from play. The moment my bench was unprotected, Hydreigon would come in to clean house. On top of that, I had made a big mistake. You see, I had bench locked myself, and my maximum damage output was 120. Even next turn, I could only do 250 with Radiant Charizard. I couldn't even use TM Devo, because it doesn't work if the Pokemon were never evolved. Remember, these Pokemon were put in play by the effect of Tatsugiri EX, which meant regardless of what happened, there was no way for me to get rid of my opponent's Hydreigons to prevent a board wipe. The game looked lost. All he had to do was wait, and next turn he could board wipe me, leaving me with only one Pokemon in play. That was until he made a massive mistake. He activated Dusknoir's ability that turn, killing my Manaphy, and giving me a prize card. Due to this, I was able to bench and attack with my Radiant Charizard due to him having less prize cards than he did before. I was able to re-establish my Manaphy and use my A-Spec Prime Catcher to take out his bench Tatsugiri EX and go down to just one prize card. Now, you may be thinking, but can't you just activate his other Dusknoir and use Obsidian this turn? While usually you may be correct, unfortunately for my opponent, when I knocked out his Tatsugiri EX, it left me with only one prize card, which meant if he used Dusknoir's ability, which gives me a prize card, he would lose the game. After this turn, the game started in my favour, and after some back and forth, I found myself with an unlikely first round win.